Greetings gamers, I'm Anto, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to use the map maker Dungeondraft. Dungeondraft has been out for a couple of weeks now, so I thought I'd put together a short tutorial showing you how to use the basics of the program. I will do more in-depth specific tutorials in the future for things like how to build ships and other different map options, but I just want to get you up and running. To start with, we're going to load up Dungeondraft and we're going to hit the new button. Now, the wizard that opens up here allows us to change our map size and change the number of tiles and change a few other options. Now we can choose a 40-inch TV, a 55-inch TV, an A4 piece of paper, an A3 piece of paper, and change the number of tiles available to us. So I'm just going to start with a 40-inch TV, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my tile values. So I want it to be 20 wide by 35 tall, just so that it has a different orientation. Now, if you want to start with a randomly generated dungeon or a cavern, you hit the Start with Map Wizard and click OK. You'll get your canvas pop up, and to zoom in and out of your canvas, you can either go down here to the bottom and change your zoom level, or you can hold down Control and roll your mouse wheel, and that will let you change how zoomed in you are. Holding down the middle mouse wheel and moving your mouse around will drag the canvas around, which is really good if you want to go from two different points and see different areas of your map without zooming out. To get started, just a quick run through of the user interface. At the top here we have our toolbar, which lets us open and save, make new maps and export. So we're going to go ahead and click save so we can save a copy of our map, and we're going to call this River Test 1. Dungeondraft is still in alpha, so make sure to save often so you don't lose your work. Down here at the bottom we've got a couple of different hints on how to use the program, and then down here on the right you can see that it shows you what position on the grid you're on. That's really handy for matching things up across levels and also for finding center and things like that. When you start with a wizard, you can choose to generate a dungeon or a cave. If you choose dungeon, you get to choose what type of wall and floor option you have, as well as the boundary, which is how close it will come to the edge of the map, how complex it is, how dense it is. And with the cave you can change all those options, but the walls won't change. So we're going to quickly generate a dungeon just so you can see what it looks like. Click generate and it will make a really quick dungeon for you, or with a cave, click generate, it will do the same. These are really great options if you want to make quick encounter maps in Dungeons or the Underdark. If you want to make something more bespoke though, you want to start without the wizard, and that will just give you a blank canvas with which to work from. I've gone ahead and changed my canvas size just so I've got a little less space to work with, so I don't have to fill so much of it for the purposes of this tutorial. But once you generate your canvas, you can start working on your map. Now, the first thing I like to do is I want to work on the natural elements of the map. If it's a map that involves some exterior location, I want to start working on that exterior first and then put my buildings in to fit that. This map is going to be a river trading post, so the first thing that I want to do is decide where this river is. And to do that, I can go into my terrain tool, select my terrain brush, and you can see here that I've got several different options. Now, to start with, we're going to grab the gravel tool and I'm going to change it to grass and hit fill. Now what this will do is it'll fill the whole canvas with grass, and then I can easily change that in the future if I wanted to. So I could build out my entire map with grass, and then I could change that grass to be sand, and it changes the entire tone of the map. So I'm going to start with a sand base, and I want to put a river running through the center of this. To do that, I'm going to go over to the water brush, and in the water brush you've got a few different options. You can change the size of your brush in relation to the canvas. You can choose to place your water in a shape. So I could just stick a long, perfectly straight river down here. Maybe it's a canal going through a city. I could place that with the shape tool. Or if I wanted to do some kind of well in the center of the map, I could use the round tool to do that. Or I can use the polygon tool to draw any kind of really funky shape that I wanted to with my water tool. But for this example, we're just going to grab the brush tool and we're just going to roughly brush in the center 5 squares of this map. Now you can see here that I've not been perfect, and that's very much intentional because I want that natural looking boundary to my river. So I've placed the river down in the center of this map, and the next thing I want to do is I want to blend it out a little bit. So I'm going to go into here, grab my terrain brush, grab a gravel brush, and I'm going to come in and resize it. And what I want to do is I want to just draw a gravel boundary. So I'm going to come in and just along here where the water meets the sand, I'm just going to draw in some gravel. Now this looks really stark to begin with and looks really ugly and messy, but we're going to go in and we're going to do a few different things to make this look much nicer. So we've placed in all our gravel, and this serves 2 main purposes. The first is to get that gravel underneath the water, just so it looks like there's some depth there. And the second is to provide a boundary between the water and the sand. Next thing we're going to do is grab the dirt tool, and we're going to place dirt down in the bottom of the river. Now we're going to be quite rough with this. We don't mind going into our gravel tool because it'll blend nicely, and that will give us another degree of depth to our water. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing overland. We're going to come up here and we're going to grab our dirt tool, and we're just going to go over where we've already been with the gravel tool. We want to leave a little bit of that gravel showing, but for the most part we want to erase it and go over. If you get too close or go too large, just use Ctrl and Z to undo. But we're going to go along here and just erase some of that gravel. And what this is doing is it's blending all of these elements together and giving you a more interesting looking river than you'd get by just slapping some water down. And then we can go and grab our original sand and just start teasing that towards the edge of the river. So we can come in and push in really close in some points and go further away and come in and get it so that it goes almost right up to the edge of the river and just blend it all out. And it means that we end up with something that looks much more natural and more interesting primarily than we would have had otherwise. We can come in and just really quickly go over the gravel in the water just to smooth it out a little bit so it's not so harsh. And then that's good. I'm happy with that. We can start moving on to the next step. The next step is going to be to add some buildings, some floors to our map. I like the style of map where you see multiple buildings and can see the interior of them all in one place. So that's what we're going to do for this. We're going to go up to our design tool, grab the floor shape option, and then we're going to decide what we want to do. I'm going to choose the smart stone and change the color to be more of an off-white. This is a desert after all. I want something that fits in. And then for the walls, I'm going to choose stone, and I'm just going to brighten up that stone a little bit as well. And then we'll make sure snap into grid is on, and we'll go in and we'll just start drawing a few different buildings. So we'll change the shapes of them. I can drag off the canvas to make sure that the walls don't appear at the boundary, or if I just drag it to the edge, you can see the wall will follow the edge of the canvas. So I'll grab one here that comes off the edge like that, and then do the same here. Let's say I want to change the shape of one of my buildings. I can hold Alt, which will change the color of my cursor, and I can use that to remove sections or go back in and add sections to the different floor areas that I've made. So I'm going to remove a couple here just to have something that looks a little more interesting. If I want to add interior walls, I can do that with the wall tool, and I can come in, grab some walls and place them. I start off by clicking on a point, and to finish my wall I just double click and it will place down a wall anywhere that I want it to. If I wanted to create a curved wall, the way I do that is click once on my starting point and then shift and click and drag. So I click on my starting point, figure out where I want it to go, so let's say here, and then I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to click, hold down the left mouse button and drag, and that will create what's known as a spline, and that lets me manipulate it based on the anchor points, so the start and the end, and then it will change the shape depending on where I'm dragging in relation to those two. So I can drag down, and then I can let go of shift, and I can let go of the left mouse button, and it will just let me manipulate that freely. If I click the left mouse button again, it will resume the wall tool, and I can do the same. If I choose to go back to the starting point, you can see that it turns green, and that means the wall's complete. If I were to double click there, I'd get a sort of semicircle shaped wall. But if I want to create more of a circular wall that's freestanding, I can click shift and then just drag again and create any shape that I want, double click, and it will finish the wall. That is basically how you create ships in Dungeondraft, and I will do an entirely separate video at some point in the future showing you how to make a ship, but that is the basics of how to create curved walls. Once our walls are in place, we can go ahead and start adding some doors. To do that, we grab the portal tool, and then we have a variety of different wall and window options available. A few things to note about the portal tool. Right up here at the top, you've got two options. You've got block light and you've got anchored / freestanding. This block light option, if you click between it, it will either let the light pass through the portal or it will block it. Dungeondraft has some pretty comprehensive light tools in it, and you want to make sure you're choosing the right option before you place your door down, because at the moment there's no way to change it once it's put down. So I'm going to stick with block light to make sure that all of my doors are blocking any lights that we might put down, and then I'll choose my door and I can start placing my doors. You can see that by default it will snap to any walls that you've placed, but by changing the anchored to freestanding, you can place it anywhere. If you turn off snapping, you can place it in the middle of blocks, and you can use mouse wheel to rotate it and have doors anywhere you like. So I can come up here, make sure I'm at a 45-degree angle, and I can place a door sticking on this particular one. So if I click anchored, it'll go to there and it will place on the wall. Then I can do the same with windows. I can add a couple of small windows here and there, and what I like to do with the windows in particular is I want them to allow light. So place a couple of windows through, and those will let light pass through them once we get to the lighting stage. This area also allows me to grab a cave brush, and if I wanted to make a cave running underground that interacts with my rooms, I can do that, but for this map we're not going to be using any caves. Once I've got the basic shapes and the buildings laid out, it's time to start adding options. Now you've got two different ways that you can do this. Go to your options tool and you can either use the object tool to place individual assets, or you can use the scatter tool. Now the scatter tool allows you to select a variety of objects and place them down. You can either scroll through all of the objects on the right here, or you can use the tag system on the left to select a different bundle of objects. So let's say I wanted to place a bunch of crates. I could go over here, click the crate option in the tags, and then shift click over the selection that I wanted, and then Dungeondraft will cycle between those options and randomly place some crates for me. I can turn off snap to grid to make the placement much more precise, and if I want to avoid one of the selected options, I can hold shift and roll the mouse wheel, and I will cycle between all the different options that I've got. And once you've placed all your objects, you'll have something that looks like this. This is a nearly complete map, but there are still a lot of things that we can do to make it look really different and really interesting. So the first thing that we can do is I can go and click here on the effects tab, and we can change the environment of the map. This is a really good way to take your daytime map and turn it into a nighttime map. I can change the color of the ambient light. So I click here and I can drag it around and you'll see that it changes. It puts a coloured filter over the entire map. Drag this down and it gives me a really dark nighttime looking version of the map, and I can go in and add light using the light tool. So if I grab a light tool, you can see that it will place lights for me. If I change the range at which the light projects, you can see it will interact with the objects in different ways, and I can change the intensity of the light to make it not as bright or make it brighter. So I can go in and I can add a variety of light sources to the map to illuminate different areas. Maybe I have some exterior lights here and here, and you can see that the light tool interacts with walls in really cool ways. It will cast directional shadows based on where they are placed, and you can stack lights to create much brighter spots. So say this forge, I can keep stacking lights on top of that until it becomes like the surface of the sun. But you can do more than that. This map at the moment is a desert river trading post, and it looks like a desert river trading post. But really easily, I can change that. If I go into my terrain tool, go into my terrain brush, you can see I can select the sand option, and if I replace the sand with something else, all of the sand on the map will change. So if I select snow, immediately I have an icy river trading post. Or if I choose grass, I've got a river moving through the grasslands. I can choose any option I want to change the look of the map. So I could choose cracked earth, or I could choose the sandstone looking terrain, and it completely changes how the map looks really quickly. This, combined with the lighting feature, means that you can create really different versions of the same map. Let's say there's a little trading post that your players go to at an early level, and they go to it in the middle of summer, so everything's nice and grassy. But you want them to visit this at different times of the day. Well, you can go to your environment tool, grab your ambient light, and you can change it. Let's select a more purple tone, and we can just drag that, and immediately we have a sunset or dusk looking map. I can change the color to be more of a reddy orange, and we have a more morning or sunrise map. Drag it back up to be white and we have a midday map, or drag it down and we have a nighttime map. Similarly, if the players have come to this trading post at level 1 in the middle of summer and they return a few months later in the winter time, I can come into the terrain brush and I can replace the grass with snow, and then when I come back in, if they've come to back to this trading post at sunset or at dusk, I can just drag that over, and that is an incredibly different looking map to what you will have put in front of them before, but it takes like 30 seconds to do. If I drag that down a little more, I can go in and add some lights, and instead of a summer map in the middle of the day with seconds of work, you have a sunset map in the winter. Or I can go back in and drag my light down and we have a nighttime winter map. But let's say that you want to add a multi-story building to your map. Let's say up here at top left we have a tavern, and I want to add another story to that tavern. That's really easy to do. You just go over to the settings tab, click on level settings, and you can rename your ground floor settings. So we'll just rename that to ground floor. And then we're going to create a new option that we're going to name, let's call it first floor. Click accept, and then to navigate between these two layers, down here on this toolbar you've got these two arrows. You can use them to cycle between your layers, or there's a drop down. Now the drop down doesn't presently work for me, but I imagine it is something that is going to be fixed. But until it is fixed, you can use the arrows to cycle between them. So here I have the first floor canvas. You can see it's completely blank. And let's say that I want to compare those two levels so I can see where a staircase goes from the ground floor up to the first floor. To do that, all I need to do is click on this compare levels option, and it will give me a variety of opacity options. So you can see up top here, we have the reference level, which is our ground floor, and we have our current level, and we can change the opacity of the two. So if I want to make the existing map more opaque, I can do that, and I can change the opacity of the current map as well. So I'm going to leave both of them around 60%, and then I can click OK, and go into my floor shape tool, and I can change my floor here and draw in a new floor that sits over the tavern. And then if I had stairs that connected the two, I can match those up, and it gives you a lot of different options. Say you have a wizard's tower, you can map every single layer of that wizard's tower in a different layer in Dungeondraft, and it gives you a lot of different options when it comes to exporting your map. So when I want to export my map, I go up here and I click on export, and what it will do is it will bring up a new wizard. Now it will ask what my source level is, so let's say ground, it will show my ground floor map. If I wanted just that first floor, I click just the first floor, and it will show just that first floor, and when I export this, it will just give me that little section of map. If I want to be able to see the rest of the map in addition to that level, all I need to do is change my source level to the ground, change my overlay level to the first floor, and there it will place that upper level on top of everything else. Another great option when you're exporting is the camera filter. This allows you to change to printer friendly, which makes everything black and white. Excellent if you're going to be printing your maps at home, or you can change to sepia, which just gives everything an old world look. I'm going to leave it on none here, and then I've got options for my grid presets. So I run my games using a virtual tabletop, so I would probably select the Roll20 option, which sets my pixels per inch for the square of the grid to 70 pixels. But you have a whole bunch of options. If you select 40-inch TV, it will size it so that it appears on a 40-inch TV so that the grid is a 1 by 1 inch. But I'm going to go ahead and select the Roll20 option and then hit export. There's also this option here, show folder on finish. All that'll do is just open the folder that you save it to when you save it. So I'm going to hit export, and I am going to choose River Trade Post Day Gridded. Hit save, and it will open up the folder that contains it, highlight the file that we've just made, and there I've got my map. And one of the things that I like most about Dungeondraft is that I can export multiple maps really quickly, change in different settings. I can change the sand to snow, change my ambient light levels, all of those things, and it allows me to cycle through the different looks of a map really quickly. So let's say we've got the trading post by day, I can have gridded and ungridded really quickly, or I can change it to a night map with gridded or ungridded, make it printer friendly. I could change the different textures in there so that it wasn't a desert map. I've got loads of flexibility to take one map and use it for multiple encounters, or reuse that map really easily and in a really organic way. So there we have it, a really quick tutorial on using Dungeondraft. I will be making a few specific tutorials in the future. For example, a ship map is something that I really want to do because a lot of people find the specifics of how to do that quite difficult. But for now, this should get you up and running with Dungeondraft. I am really excited for the future of Dungeondraft. There are hotfixes and bug fixes coming thick and fast, and pretty soon we should start getting our first updated asset packs as well, which is going to be really exciting. I'd love to know if you've already got Dungeondraft, what you think of it down in the comments below. What maps have you made? Share some of them with me in the community, that would be awesome. And I'd also really like to hear what kind of maps you'd like to see me make in the future. Would you be interested in seeing some time-lapse video of me just making some maps, or some more in-depth videos where I talk about my thought process behind making some of the maps? Let me know down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, do hit that like button because it helps tell YouTube that this is worth putting in front of people, and that's half the battle for small time creators like me. If you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe. I regularly release RPG, world building and map making content, and I've got a whole bunch of videos on my channel for all sorts of things, including Dungeondraft and Wonderdraft. But until next time, happy gaming. Thanks for watching. If you're new here and you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. I release a new RPG, tabletop and world building related content every single week. And if you enjoy what I do here and want to help the channel grow, consider supporting me on Patreon. And if you want to keep watching, I've got another couple videos over there. But until next time, happy gaming.